McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. This is John McGlynn, John McGlynn 75 on X, and I'm here with my guy JT Orange. What's up, JT?
Hey man, how you doing?
Talking about quarterbacks today. We're gonna do a 4-part series here. Yeah, there we go. Everybody loves quarterbacks, especially in Superflex, 2 quarterback leagues. So we're gonna start today with quarterbacks. Tomorrow we'll do running backs, and then Thursday and Friday we'll end out this 4-part series with wide receivers, and then tight ends on Friday because everybody loves tight ends now. They're becoming popular. But today we're going to start with quarterbacks, just kind of do some look past this last season, what happened, and then look ahead to like next year a little bit. But just talk about some guys we like. We're going to use my home league scoring and my McGlynn home leagues to kind of go over like how guys did, top 12, quarterbacks, and then some rookies. So we'll cover all the bases today. But JT, who was the MVP for quarterback this year? Do you think, as far as fantasy is concerned?
John, before we jump into this, do you want to run down the scoring for people just for the baby boomers league that we're doing, just in case they're wondering, was it half PPR? What was it this? Was it that? And again, we did these rankings while you're looking at that. We considered anything top 12 finish as a QB1 finish for a week. And then anything that was top 24 was a QB2 week. If you were 13th to 24th, it was considered a QB2 week as far as I was doing these rankings, what I'm talking about. So in case you're like, I saw stuff in QB1 is only 1 through 10. I consider a QB1 week because we're doing super flex 12 team. I consider if you were a starter, basically a top 12 guy, that is a QB1 week in my mind. Because even if you look at our like sleeper page, when you're looking at our rankings, they only have 1 through 10 considered a QB1 week. But if you were in the top 12, I consider that a QB1 week, just to kind of give people an idea. John, did you want to run down that scoring just real fast for people? So just so they know.
I sure do. And we have a lot. There are a handful of Mighty McGlynn Dynasty home leagues, and the scoring is a little bit different in all of them. Some are half PPR, some are full PPR, they're all super flex, they're all Dynasty. They're all 12 teams, 30-man roster. So hence the top 12 quarterbacks is a quarterback one for the week because there's 12 teams in the league. So this scoring here is for quarterbacks. For 1 point, it's 25 yards passing. Passing touchdown is 5 points. I think it's a little bit better. It kind of evens it out because 4 point for quarterbacks who don't run, don't throw tons of passes, or guys who throw tons of passes and don't run a lot. It's kind of. So 5's right in the middle between 4 and 6. I just like that equalizer kind of scoring. Passing first downs is 0.2 because you should be getting something for passing first downs. 2-point conversions, 2 points, just like a regular NFL scoring. Intercepted is -2, so you don't get absolutely killed with interceptions. But if you throw a pick 6, you lose an extra 2 points. So it's -4 for a pick 6. The -2 for the interception itself, and then 2 more for the pick 6 thrown. Pass completions, 0.1, so every 10 completed passes is a full point. You don't get knocked at all for incomplete passes. Passing attempts, so every time you throw a pass, whether it's complete or not, you get a 0.1, so every 10 pass attempts is 1 point. Quarterback sacked, you only lose 1. That was voted on. I like getting 2-point sacks as a quarterback because everybody says, it's an offensive line issue, where it's also a quarterback holding the ball too long issue sometimes. So I like -2, but this league voted to have it -1, which it is what it is. And then sleeper, I wish sleeper would change these because the 40-yard completion bonus, it should be like a 40 gets like 1 point, a 50 gets 2 points, a 60 gets 1.2 or 1.5 or 2. They only have these 2 regular, plus 40 or plus 50-yard completion bonus, and it doesn't make any sense. Get a 30, get a 40, get a 50, get a 60, so you can maybe do 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, something like that for each one of those. but that's all they have as far as scoring are concerned. And the same with like a 300-yard passing, things like that. So here's a bonus scoring also that has bonuses for quarterbacks are the same as running backs as far as rushing games concerned. 100 to 199 yards is 4 points. So Justin Fields would get, guys who run the ball a lot would get. Josh Allen had a big game last night, but he didn't quite get to 100 yards. But that's 4 points for a rushing 100-yard game. 200 yards rushing is 8 points, but quarterbacks, generally speaking, won't do that. 300 to 399-yard passing games are 3. 400-yard passing game is 6. I wish they had a 500-yard passing game because it's happened before. I'm not sure whether that's not an option even. And then there's a bunch of other 25 pass completions, you get an extra 2 points. 20-plus carries. Some quarterbacks can come close to that sometimes. First down, well, I don't have anything in there. Those are the original ones. But so these scorings, they're not a lot of scoring. I like MFL scoring way better than sleeper scoring as far as that goes. I wish they'd carry over some of the options on sleeper, but those are the scoring settings for this league we're talking about right now. So in this league,
so that's kind of what I wanted to tell people. Just give them the heads up. So we do have quite a few bonuses, like I said, with the completions, attempts, the sacks are negative. So when we talk about scoring in the system, you're like, man, that's a ton of points. Quarterbacks score a lot of points in this league. Just so people know, if we're like, we say, hey, somebody scored 600 points, you're like, what? They had like 400 in my league. That's why is so we're basing this on our boomers, baby boomers league that we're in. Me and you are in this league together. So we just kind of ran off that scoring. It's pretty close to normal scoring, but a little bit higher bonuses, a little higher scoring for QBs. So just throughout the episode, as we mentioned points or where guys scored, we went off that league. Sometimes because of the scoring, guys finished maybe 1 or 2 spots higher or lower than they did in a half PPR or regular PPR or regular scoring league. Just so you're aware, because I know I wrote that in a lot of times. I noticed people would probably be like, "What? That's not where you finished in my league." That's the why. So to jump into that, John, like you said, MVP, QB MVP. This is one we both, I think, we're in the same boat on. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, just an absolute beast this year. Man, if you were in a huge turnover league where the turnovers were really negative points, he might have really hurt you in some areas. They were negative points in this league as well, but they weren't monster negative points, like you said, for the interceptions, fumbles, that types of things, as he was second in the league in turnovers. But that tells you what kind of season he had, that he was second in the league in turnovers and still was the number 1 scoring quarterback. In our league, he finished first place, 616 points. He had 60 points more than Jalen Hurts. 60 more than the second highest guy, and they both tied for an NFL record 15 rushing touchdowns this season. So that tells you how kind of crazy and incredible that was. Josh Allen was just a difference maker. The running, the passing, obviously being able to score, get in the end zone. Even despite the turnovers, he was an absolute beast, and he carried most teams. He was my QB MVP this year.
He was my QB MVP. And we were talking about scoring settings before. I like MFL and sleeper are not the only options for quarterback. This league started 2 years ago now. So it's there's now a lot. We started a league on Fantrax recently, and they have a lot of scoring options that are a little bit more sophisticated in sleeper. So you have a couple more things you could choose from. So if you are starting a new league, give Fantrax a try, because they have, they're just as our hockey league is on Fantrax. The football league we joined recently is on Fantrax also, and they have more options, and it's just as easy to use as the sleeper is on your phone. Like MFL, I love the scoring, but man, it's terrible on the phone. But Fantrax is pretty good on both the cell phone, and it's actually good on the desktop too. So that's unlike sleeper. So just giving you the heads up there. But we were talking about the MVP quarterback. Yes, Josh Allen. Despite the turnovers, it was a beast, like you had said. He's just a superhero, man. The guy just does everything on the field. He could throw the ball anywhere in the field. He can run. You saw last night in the game, dude just took off for a 50-yard touchdown, a 45-yard touchdown, and just smoked the DBs on the way to the end zone. I mean, and he's, he's big enough to do, they talk about Jalen Hurts squatting 600 pounds and how they do the tush push with the offensive line. I mean, Josh Allen is physical. He likes he'll be able to handle, he encourages being hit. It's almost like the dude, he said that he's like, I like, it kind of wakes me up when I get hit. Dudes like that, I don't see him getting hurt because he prepares. He's like a running back. He prepares himself when he gets hit. He knows what it feels like to get hit. He encourages it he encourages himself to get hit by other people to kind of wake him up and feel like he's part of the game. And every once in a while, he gets his arm, taken back when, and he gets his elbow or shoulder hurt for a couple of weeks. But the guy still goes out there and throws 60-yard bombs, even with a bad shoulder. So he's almost like, he's like a superhero. He heals himself. He's got like heel power and stuff. But it's absolutely amazing how good that dude is, man. So 100% MVP for myself. So top in our league, our top 12 finishes with JT. We were talking about our scoring points.
Yep.
Josh Allen 616, Jalen Hurts 552, Dak Prescott 540, so right behind Hurts. Lamar Jackson 491, which Lamar Jackson for league MVP, he threw the ball a lot, but 491 is, it's 100 points or what 50 points less than Dak Prescott did this season. So I was kind of surprised by that. Jordan Love 479, huge surprise, a good surprise seeing Jordan Love rack up all those points. Mahomes 475. I traded away pretty much everything plus my last child to get Patrick Mahomes in our startup draft, and to get 475. It's still quarterback 5, or quarterback 6, but I'm expecting a lot better years from Mahomes going forward.
Yeah, he was one of those. He had a good year. Number 5 is nothing to sneeze at, but he had a good year, but he just wasn't that guy that won you weeks like he did in the past. He didn't just take over, win you a week with a 35, 40-point game. He had a lot of 225, 240 passing games, like 1 or 2 TDs. Again, solid season, not saying that, but if you had Mahomes, I had Mahomes on a bunch of teams where I was expecting him to carry me. And I just had some teams that really struggled because he didn't have monster games like you've seen in the past. So, again, like you said, good season, but just, you're looking at it, he had, 140 points, 135 points less than Josh Allen. So it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, he's just definitely a set it and forget it. He's a quarterback 1. I have the luxury of having him as like my quarterback 2 with Josh Allen or Dak Prescott on a couple teams. So it's pretty nice. Definitely a set it and forget it, but you just, I think we expect a little bit more from Patrick Mahomes this year. You still can't be mad, but when he's in the same tier as Jared Goff and Brock Purdy and stuff like that, you're kind of like, which are the next 2 quarterbacks on the list? You never expect Patrick Mahomes to be mentioned in the same names, point behind Jordan Love for scoring. Like, you could have took Jordan Love in like round, 15 or something like that, and still
so much later.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at the average in our league, I just pulled up our average scoring. So Allen was number 1 at 36.2 points a game. So that was his season average. Mahomes was all the way back at 7. So he finished 5th in scoring, but he was 7th in average at 29.7. So he was a good 7 points a game less than Allen. And he was, like you said, he was just behind Lamar. He was just barely ahead of CJ Stroud, and he averaged 1 more point than Jordan Love this year per game.
Yeah, this list
on an average. So again, you're right in there. Goff averaged 27 points a game in our league. So you're looking for a big difference between Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes. And if it's only 2 points per game, you're like, ugh. You want a lot more of an advantage if you're a Mahomes owner than that.
I think we'll get it next year. Just as kind of a down year, and he still did this. So yeah, the future's looking bright, of course. And then to get it, he led the league in passes dropped. Him and
oh yeah, he didn't get helped out. So I know it sounds like we're trashing Mahomes here. We're not. He just didn't have the year fantasy wise we're hoping for. But I think you, like you said, he led the league in drops. They need some more wide receiver. He needs some more help. But yeah, go ahead, John. I think we're on. Then it was Jared Goff 459, Purdy 440, Tua 436, Baker Mayfield 428. It's the rookie CJ Stroud at 428, and then Trevor Lawrence at 417 was the top 12 in our league this year.
Which player surprised you the most?
For me, and this for me too is because I owned him in a lot of leagues. Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was a huge surprise. The fact that he was able to come out, finish in the top 10 in scoring when most people had left him for dead. If you had acquired him like I did in a lot of leagues for like a 3rd round pick in a super flex last year or the year before, you're ecstatic that you got a top 10 finish as him as your number 2 QB or your number 3 QB. I actually probably should have played him more this year in a few leagues. I sat him on occasion where I should have played him. I'm just a huge year for him. I mean, finishes QB 10, 428 points was just phenomenal. Big year for him. My second big surprise, and these are good surprises, was Sam Howell. Now, Sam Howell is a guy I touted all off season. I wanted him everywhere. I was taking him as my second or third QB in Superflex leagues. He was top 10 most of the year. People don't understand that. He was top 10 almost the whole year. He had 9 QB1 performances, and he was just outside the top 12 in 2 other games. So he was like that's almost 11 out of 17 games, top 10 performances, QB1 performances, top 12 performances, QB1 performances. How that's amazing. What knocked him down this year was turnovers. He led the league with 23 turnovers. And what really killed his final stats is he ended up finishing QB 14 on the season. So, I mean, nothing to laugh at there at QB 14. I mean, real solid. I was pulling it up, 386.6 points. He was only 30 points behind Trevor Lawrence for the number 12 spot. So great year. The turnovers knocked him down a little bit. And really, it was the final 4 games of the year. He really struggled the last 4 games. Up until that point, he was a top 12 QB, top 10. But the last 4 games, he really struggled. He got benched in one of them. So it was one of those things where if you take away those last 4, Sam Howell as a top 12 QB for where you got him in drafts was, to me, just a great season. I know people think they're going to draft a QB at number 2. If they do, I am praying that the Commanders move him to somewhere else where he can start. Because he to me this year, the turnovers happen. Peyton Manning, ton of turnovers is his rookie year. I know this was technically Howell's second year, but he sat his whole first year. I think the guy showed that he can play. I think he can play. I want to see him get another shot. What about you, John? Who was kind of your big surprise this year as the QBs were concerned?
You said Baker Mayfield, so I know I traded Tim George, Baker Mayfield earlier this season when I didn't like my draft. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to throw in a towel and go. I traded away Matt Breida and Baker Mayfield. I got back my guy Gibby, which just was like pretty much a flat tire on a Porsche this year. So that went down the tubes. I got Kadarius Toney, which ended up being a joke. You know, this is October 5th. I did this trade. And then I got a 25 second, which I didn't like his 24 second. I think it was going to be something that, you know, obviously number 12, I got that 2 in a different trade, but 25 second, I think his team's a little bit older. So I was pretty happy with getting a second, but Baker Mayfield was a great surprise player. I liked him a lot. I drafted him late. And he absolutely surprised me. So that was a good one. CJ Stroud was one that I really did not expect, rookie to come out, especially on a Texans team that was in last place last year. And this year it ends up going in the second round of the playoffs. I could not believe how good he looked this season, even with, unexpected quarterback, an unexpected wide receiver room that was injured half the season. He looked absolutely fantastic. Brock Purdy, another surprise. Like, who would have thought Brock Purdy? I think me and you were on the same page where we thought Sam Darnold was going to win this job in training camp and go on. At some point in time, Purdy was going to stumble over his own feet, and Sam Darnold would take over. But Purdy just keeps pumping out, QB high QB. I think he had 5 or 6 quarterback 1 weeks. So
yeah, he was super solid this year. Like I said, I was the same boat as you. I thought Darnold would win, especially with Purdy coming off the injury. I thought he'd get off to a slow start. I wasn't sure he'd be ready for training camp. Man, guy really impressed me. I'm going to count up QB1 finishes for him this year.
Mm-hmm. And Jordan Love.
He had 9 QB1 finishes for Purdy, and he had 2 where he finished as QB 13. Yeah. So almost 11 QB1 finishes for Brock Purdy, and that's with him sitting out the last game. So that's in 16 games. Pretty impressive. His lowest QB of the year was QB 33. So he was still QB2 in every other week, and he was high QB2 in all but 4 weeks on the season. He was high QB2. So for the most part. So I'm really surprised about Brock Purdy as well.
I think you expect to get like 25 points out of a quarterback is kind of what you're hoping for. And, every week you expect like 12 or 15 for a wide receiver. I think quarterback, you're kind of expecting 25 points. And he's got 23, 20, 34, 28, 34. Week 6, he only had 10 versus a good Cleveland defense. And then he had 22, 31, 32, 39, 15 versus Seattle, 41, 32, 35. And then he had 8 and then 28 again. But he was injured. He had a little bit of a, knocked out with a head situation in versus Baltimore. So he didn't get to play all the snaps. So he only got 8.5 points, but 28 points versus Washington. And then he sat out week 18. I mean, most of those weeks you're super happy because Purdy's probably your quarterback 3 on most teams where you drafted him at, to be honest with you. So to have a guy like that where you just threw in, he ends up being your quarterback 1 for your team.
Yeah, averaged right around 26 points a game in this league. So, very, very solid for him. Was highly impressed.
Yes. And then my last one I just kind of threw on here also, just guys who just, you can't not look at Jordan Love and say, man, this guy just killed it this year, because I don't understand. I was not a Jordan Love guy. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is the end of the Packers regime with great quarterbacks. And, just that I think it's over now. The Packers are going to be in a situation where we're going to need a quarterback next year. He had nothing but the youngest wide receiver core in the league. You never even heard of half the guys on the team. Next thing you know, 30 points, 28 points, 35 points, 20 points, 25, 20, 18, 26, 32, 38, 37. He started getting hot towards the end of the season. And then versus the Giants, he had 18 and 29, 31, 39, 33. And the guys he just smoked the Cowboys this weekend. These are quarterbacks that I'm a quarterback guy. I always trade up and get my guys in drafts, but I'm changing my tune now. I'm just going to go after wide receivers and let these quarterbacks just fall to me. But the way Love looks now, the way he's throwing the ball, if they put a different number on the back of that jersey, you watch Jordan Love throw the ball, you would think you're watching Aaron Rodgers. The way his mannerisms, the way he falls back, the way he jumps. A lot of quarterbacks can't get away with not setting their feet and throwing the ball. He dude is running sideways, throwing the ball left sidearm, and you see he's just throwing the ball right in the middle of 2 defenders. It's a postage stamp he's trying to hit on the run, and he's nailing it every time. Super surprised in Jordan Love this year. I was not a Jordan Love guy. And man, I just I can't believe what I'm seeing this year. I'm super happy to watch him play football.
Yeah, I have to tell you, he was by far my biggest miss this year. I was out on Jordan Love. I didn't take him anywhere. It didn't matter where he dropped in drafts. I wasn't taking him. I actually looked at preseason bets against him. I was going to bet that he was going to lead the league in picks. But then my worry was he was going to get benched and not play the whole season. And so I was like, I didn't want to put the bet in. That's how off I was on Jordan Love. So I'll take my wins with like a guy like Sam Howell, but I'll take my losses too. Jordan Love, I was out on completely. I was 100% wrong. The guy had a great season. And man, if anything, he proves that you got to give a guy time and you got to let him progress. If you looked at the first half of the season, there have been people, if they had someone else better than John Clifford as their backup, people probably would have been calling for the backup to come in. But you look at that second half of the season for Love, he was unbelievable. Touchdown to interception ratio was off the charts. He led the youngest team in the league. It was great. Everybody complained about the wide receiver core. Their best wide receiver, Christian Watson, supposedly their best wide receiver, was injured a lot of the year. I thought Love, total miss by me. He was phenomenal. I agree with you. One of the biggest surprises of the year.
Yeah, those are the surprises. But let's talk about some players.
Good surprises. That's the good surprises. Let's talk about the bad surprises.
Yes,
or we like to call the disappointments.
My number one disappointments in this league, I drafted Daniel Jones. Pretty high. I think I got him in the 3rd round or something like that. But again, I made like 65 trades in the initial startup in this draft. So I traded away DJ Moore, Mark Andrews, Daniel Jones, a 1st and a 2nd in 2020, which end up being lottery picks now. But I got back. This is what I'm talking about, paying up for quarterbacks. I got Mahomes, Greg Dortch, and Sky Moore, who are both complete whiffs. So I traded away all that just to get Mahomes. And I look like a jackass now with the guys we just talked about, these young quarterbacks you got for almost free. and it's like shit. But yeah, this is Daniel Jones is one of my biggest disappointments, and I don't want anybody to take this wrong or say like, you know, he was a huge disappointment, whatever. But another guy that just his team kind of hurt him so much is Trevor Lawrence. I absolutely love Trevor Lawrence. I think he's way better than his stats are saying. How many times guys just couldn't stay in bounds or drop the ball, or you know, he's running for his life, or you know, just get put in bad situations by the defense. I just don't get. It disappointed me just on a fantasy football level, but he seems like he's progressing every year, and this year he kind of flatlined where I didn't see a lot of improvement this year from him. But again, I think the team kind of let him down a little bit. So what do you think about those two guys for disappointments?
Yeah, I agree with you. I know obviously the injury to Daniel Jones, but man, when he played, he didn't look good.
No,
I mean, he didn't look good even if he was there. So the injury hurt him, obviously, but he was not good before then. I had T-Law on my list as well. Not going to lie, John. And I know you and me are both huge T-Law guys, but same reasons you said. I don't think he was terrible by any means. I mean, he was top 12. He was a QB1, but I thought the major breakout top 5, top 6 QB was incoming this year. I thought it was, but his wide receiver core did him absolutely no favors. Tons of drops. I mean, there's a highlight, I guess you can kind of highlight or low light reel on X that someone put together of all the catches that his wide receivers made out of bounds in the end zone, like where they didn't get a foot in or they dropped the ball. It was a ton. I remember texting you a couple of times going, T-Law would have like 3 more TDs today if his guys can keep their feet in bounds. It was crazy. So he got no favors there. I mean, if you look at he easily could have had 5-6 more touchdowns this year. I mean, easily. So, and then he was banged up, dealt with injuries. I think a little bit like reminds me of Josh Allen last year. Josh Allen fought through, played hard for the Bills, kept him in it, even though he wasn't 100%. Banged up T-Law. I think that also put, you know, he tried to play through it, and I appreciate that, but you could tell. If you watch the games, the last couple of games of the year, he was floating balls that he wasn't even close to certain guys on, that were balls that he easily puts on the money. But when you have those rib injuries, those shoulder injuries stuff, you start floating passes. You don't stand in the pocket as long to take hits because you're hurting. So he was a disappointment into me that he was, you know, not as high as it was. QB 12, solid season, but I still think T-Law has a lot more ahead of him. I think he could be even better if he gets some help and he has a healthy season. So that to me, like you said, was a little disappointment. And I'm going to have to just bite the bullet on this one. My biggest swing and miss, as I have my Steelers sweatshirt on, still dealing with the loss in the playoffs, Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was by far my biggest miss on the side of someone I was touting all offseason. I thought he was due to have a big second year. He looked phenomenal in the preseason. The Steelers had a ton of weapons. I thought, man, Kenny's going to put it together this year, and he is going to be someone that a lot of people were upset that they were so down on. And, man, I looked wrong. I looked real wrong to a lot of people. He struggled, had injuries. He never looked comfortable this year. He got hurt. He missed 5 games, so that also hurt. But his best outing of the year was 235 yards and 2 TDs in week 3, and he finishes QB 15. That was his best showing of the entire year. He finished as QB 31 in our league. So that's the very bottom of starting QBs in the NFL. Yeah, it was rough. I don't know what they're going to do. Mason Rudolph looked pretty good the last couple of games. If you're a Pickett owner, I think you're in turmoil in this offseason of what to do with him. Even if you trade him, what are you going to get for him? If you still are a believer, maybe you can get him for cheap just because somebody else is out on him. But that was my opposite of the Love. Love was a guy I was out on, had a great year. Pickett was a guy I was in on, was terrible. Biggest swing and miss by far.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, generally speaking, you want to have 25 points a week per your quarterback. Pickett had 1 game over 25, which is week 3 versus the Raiders. And then he had a 22-point game versus, in LA versus the Rams. But other than that, he didn't have anything over 20 points. A couple games, 18, 17,
in a high-scoring QB league. This is
Right.
a high-scoring QB league, and he broke 20 twice.
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 I mean, it's like playing.
Just plain
it's like
awful.
playing.
And it's not like they don't have talent. They've got talent. They've got good receivers. He just looked really bad this year. I mean, it was ugly.
You might as well have played a wide receiver at the super flex position.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. In a lot of super flex leagues, you would have been better off playing a running back or a wide receiver in that spot.
Right. Yes, that's your boy. So we had the rookies this year. We had anybody else you want to talk about, or Kenny Pickett was pretty much all you're venting about today?
He was my big disappointment as far as a guy that I was high on. Like I said, I think T-Law for me was a disappointment. The other guy that I think, I'll take my win to is Deshaun Watson. Now he was a league-wide disappointment. He didn't surprise me. I was off on him all off season. I said, I don't want any Deshaun Watson. If I had him on any team, I was trading him away. Heck, I traded away last year if I had him on any team because I thought his value was just going to keep going down. He was terrible this year. I know he missed the year. People are like, oh, he was injured. He didn't get a chance to really pull it together. It doesn't matter. He was bad. When he was in there, he was bad. The team didn't look good. I was trying to look up what his actual average was per game before he got hurt, because it was here it is. He averaged in our league, he averaged right at 20 points a game.
Yeah.
He missed the second half of the year. In week 1, and this is wild because there was not a lot of good performances week 1 for quarterbacks. He actually finished as QB5 week 1 in this league, but he only was 16 of 29 for 154 yards and 1 touchdown and an interception. He got saved by 45 yards rushing and a touchdown.
Yeah.
To get him to number 5. That was his best performance of the season. 154 on the ground, or 154 through the air, a rushing touchdown, a receiving, passing touchdown, interception. Second week, it was QB 27. Third week, he got 289 yards against a terrible Tennessee secondary with 2 touchdowns to get him QB 10. Then he missed a couple weeks, came back, scored negative points against Indy before he went out with injury. They came back. He was 19 of 32, 19, 2 touchdowns for his second best overall scoring performance against Arizona at the time, who was terrible. He had 27 points that game. Then he was QB 14 against Baltimore, 213 again, just 1 touchdown, 1 pick in that game, and then hurt the rest of the season. Now, am I saying he's absolutely unplayable, terrible quarterback? No. But what I am saying is I don't think you're ever going to get Deshaun Watson top 5 QB ever again. I just don't see that guy coming back. I don't think it's going to happen. Can he be playable in Dynasty? Is he going to be a guy that's going to get you some QB1 weeks? I think so. But to me, he's way more in that quarterback 15 to 20 range than he is anywhere near the top 12.
Out of the 5 weeks he actually played, well, over like 90% of the snaps, the snap rate pretty much, he did get 3 games over 20 points, which, like I said, 25 was kind of the league standard here. He got 26 points and then 31 points in week 3 versus Tennessee. Even though he was only quarterback 10, he still threw for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is respectable. That's around quarterback 1 range, 31 points. And then week 9 versus Arizona, he got 27 points. And then he got 20 versus Baltimore, which is subpar, but still 20 points. Not terrible, but you'd expect a little bit more. And then, versus Indianapolis, he got hurt. It was he only played 16% of the snaps. He went 1 for 5 with an interception, and he got pulled because he got hurt. But I mean, I don't see, if he goes back fully healthy with a whole year of practice in the offseason, with his shoulder's fine, everything's good, I'm still optimistic on Deshaun Watson. I'm not throwing in the towel right now. These stats aren't absolutely atrocious.
Like I said, they're not horrendous, but he's not the top 5 guy that people thought they were getting with him. So again, like I said, I think he's playable. I wouldn't go out and get him unless I'm not going to get him in any league. That's just me. But if you wanted him and you could get him at a decent price, as long as you expect him to be a middle to low end QB2, if that's your expectation, I think you're going to be super happy, because I think he's going to hit that expectation. Now, the question is, if you're going to pay up for him, expecting him to be a top 10 guy, that's where I'm just not sure he's a top 10 guy anymore. Now, I could be wrong on that. I could just totally eat my words. I just don't think he gets there. I don't think he gets back into that consistent top 10, especially not the top 5 guy he was when he was in Houston. That's all I'm saying. I would rank him somewhere between QB 15 and QB 20. So again, I think he's a QB 2 in the league. And obviously that's playable and a guy you want. I just don't want him for personal reasons, and I don't want to pay the cost because I just don't think he's worth the cost of what you got to pay. Now, if you get him super cheap, then I say go ahead and do it.
Well, you got to buy him from Nick, and trading with Nick is almost impossible sometimes. So even if you wanted him, you're not getting him anyway unless you're giving.
I mean, in this league, they kept trying to trade him to me in this league all year. I kept getting harassed all year. They're trying to trade him to me, and I was like, I just don't want him. I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't want it. Don't want it. Not going to do it. So it is what it is. I had another league that I was near dead last, and they're like, you need to get CMC off your team. And they kept trying to trade me him, Watson, Chubb, and then finally threw in Mark Andrews in the mix for CMC. And I was like, I know my team's terrible right now because of injuries, but I'm like, I actually kind of like my team. And I was like, I just don't want Watson. I just don't like him. I don't think it's value. I was like, if you gave me another QB, I'd probably make the trade. But I just wasn't into Watson, a 29 or 30-year-old Nick Chubb coming off a major knee injury. And then I like Andrews. He was an upgrade for me, but I couldn't pull the trigger on CMC. Me personally.
I get it. All right, so let's move to the rookies now. This is the top 5 rookies in our scoring system for Babies and Boomers League that we're talking about here. CJ Stroud, 428 on his outstanding rookie points. Bryce Young, 231 was the second quarterback. It doesn't even seem like he had 231 points this year. He was absolutely terrible. It was brutal. Aiden O'Connell was right behind him at 196, only 30 points. That's pretty sad. Aiden O'Connell was only 30 points behind Bryce Young, and Bryce Young was the number 1 pick.
Bryce Young played every game, I'm pretty sure. I think he played every game this year, and O'Connell did not. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, I'll double check on that right now. So Bryce Young, he played in every game, 100% of the snaps in just about every game. 97, 98, and 97 were the only times he didn't play 100% of the snaps. But to play the entire season, minus week 3 versus Seattle, he didn't play. But whatever happened there, I forgot. But 16 games, only 231 fantasy football points from Bryce Young. Aiden O'Connell.
And Connell played in 11 games. Only 10 of those games did he get a start. So started in only 10 games compared to 17 for Bryce Young and was only 30 points less.
That's ridiculous, yeah. Will Levis, 145. Will Levis came, and I think about 142 of those points came in one game when he blew up like the middle of the season.
Yeah, the opener when he just hit DeAndre Hopkins deep on every play because no one was ready for it because Tannehill hadn't been able to throw deep all year, and then DeAndre just smoked people, and they were not ready for the one thing I will say about Levis, which I never talk good about him, he does have a cannon. The guy does have a gun, so
I'm looking forward to. I mean, you just like a running back or wide receiver, you can't teach speed. You can't teach throwing power. If you have it, you don't. And I think you can learn. Like Will Levis, he's not that bad at touch passes either. I think the offense just needed a humongous makeover. And Will Levis, the Tennessee tried trading up in the first round to get Levis, and they got him pretty early in the second round too. So I think they still like him for the future. The next head coach is going to have to eat Levis for a year, whether he likes it or not. And somebody who comes in with a better playbook, Levis might be okay if with not just a play action to the king Derrick Henry every week. Who knows what's going to happen? I still have faith in Levis, so I'm happy to have him in a couple teams. But I just missed the window on selling for like 3 firsts when he had that blow up game. It was like, people were offering me like 2 and 3 firsts. I'm like, I should have done it right there. I should have, but they were real late firsts, and it was like a 24 and a 25. Like,
you had to sell. I missed that sell window, and the only reason I missed that sell window was I disliked Levis so much I didn't have him on any team. So that was the only time I was really disappointed. Then I was like, oh, I should have taken him somewhere because this was a perfect opportunity for me to sell him, and I didn't have him anywhere to sell. So that hurt me.
Yeah, and then after that, we're looking at Tommy DeVito, who only played a handful of games. What did he play? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. He played 8 games. And he was only 40 points behind, not even 30-some, like 34 points behind Will Levis. And it's like, holy cow. Like, I mean, the Will Levis was a little worse than I actually imagine. I mean, he really literally got almost all of his points in that one game. So Tommy DeVito, obviously he was there for a good time, not a long time. The cream kind of rose to the top when you saw like how bad he was going to be as he progressed throughout the season. And then Tyson Bagent went 96 points. He only played a handful of games too. And he still had 100 points, only 40 points behind. Or
he
like
was a nice surprise.
Levis.
I mean, you're talking about a D2 undrafted kid,
right?
Came in and played for Fields. I'm not going to go with him as overall surprise, but he was a nice little surprise this year. I was happy to see the Bears put him on the roster. I was happy that he was the backup to Fields. I hope he stays that way if they can stay with Fields. I'll jump in real quick on my big surprise of the year. I know you talked about earlier his overall surprise was CJ Stroud. He was my rookie surprise, and he didn't really surprise me in that I thought he was going to be the best rookie quarterback, but he surprised me how well he was right out of the gate, how well he played the entire season. He was my QB1 coming into this draft. I loved him. I wanted the Colts to get him. He's a guy I'm rooting for. I just think he's a great player. I thought he would be good this year. Blown away that he was QB 11 with 428 points in our league. He took, like what you said, basically a last place team that looked awful last year on offense in every single way and made everyone around him better. I mean, coaching staff did a great job with him, but man, CJ Stroud, the guy's got pinpoint accuracy. He throws an amazing deep ball. I tell you what, for the AFC South being the laughing stock of the NFL the last couple of years, this is going to be a crazy good division moving forward, at least when it comes to QB play. I mean, you got Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. If the Colts can get Anthony Richardson healthy, which I really like. Anthony Richardson I thought was a huge project. I liked the Colts drafting him if they couldn't get Stroud. I thought he was a huge project. He still is a project, but he was much better before he got hurt than I thought he would be. He looks like a guy that could really be the real deal. And then you never know with Tennessee. If Levis puts it together, man, you're going to have 4 young studs battling it out for the next decade in the AFC South. My
rookie surprise was Aiden O'Connell. I just think that I don't get me wrong. If you expected the season that Stroud had, I think you're just telling you were telling a story. Nobody knew that Stroud was going to do that. It was unbelievable how good he was. But Aiden O'Connell, for what he got thrown into, and nobody really expected much out of him either. He had 2 top 10 games, and then he also had 2 games that, top 20 quarterbacks, and he was like 21, 22, 23.
I mean, he was right. He was right on that verge of like low end QB2.
Right.
All year when he started. And like, if you would have saw him being Aiden O'Connell, what was he, a 6th round pick by the Raiders?
Something like that.
If you would have said he's going to come in second half of the year after basically getting no snaps in the preseason, no snaps in camp, he's going to come up because originally he was QB3 on this team. It was Jimmy G, Brian Hoyer, then O'Donnell. I remember getting into it midseason with a bunch of Raiders fans on X, and I said, "What are you?" They came out one week and said they're going to start Brian Hoyer instead of O'Connell when Jimmy G was hurt, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Right. I'm like, "Start O'Connell." I'm like, "The guy's played okay so far. He's young." I'm like, Brian Hoyer, while he's been in the league forever, guy's had a great career. He's not the answer. He has been awful the last 7 years. In any game he started, he's been terrible. I'm like, do yourself a start O'Connell. I got ripped by every Raiders fan. We're trying to win. We're not out here just wasting people's time. Of course, he immediately gets benched for O'Connell because he's terrible. And then O'Connell goes on and just takes over the starter job the rest of the year from Jimmy G. The fact that Jimmy G without a clear-cut injury. Now, he did get hurt a couple times when O'Connell came in, but without a clear-cut season-ending injury, they just went to O'Connell and said he's our best option the rest of the way. For a Raiders team that I was out on this year, I thought would be awful and actually were pretty respectable once they got rid of McDaniel, who part of the reason I thought they'd be awful is because I think McDaniel's a terrible coach. But other than that, I agree with you. I thought O'Connell, the success, the fact that you could have got him for basically nothing in your draft, and he ended up being a low end QB2 for you. I think that's just a huge win.
Yeah. So I think we discussed our rookie disappointments, all my rookie surprises, rookie disappointments. I already talked about Will Levis, and I think you have,
Bryce
basically,
mine was basically Bryce Young, and for the reasons you said. I mean, the Panthers were bad. I'm not trying to pile on Bryce Young. I wasn't super high coming out of the draft. I didn't take Bryce Young anywhere. I wanted either AR or CJ Stroud. I mean, Young struggled, and he's real bad. He was 25th in the league in scoring as a QB, 232 points. Just finished this. Just think about this. He barely finished. I think it was 1 or 2 points ahead of Jake Browning and Kyler Murray in scoring in the league. And both those guys played 8 games.
Yeah.
They each played 8 games. Bryce Young played a full 17 games. And he scored basically the same amount of points as those guys playing half a season. And Jake Browning as a backup that nobody had on their roster until basically it looked like Burrow was going to miss some time. He was on anybody's roster. Those guys scored the same as him. Hopefully Bryce Young, they can put it together. The Panthers were bad in general, but that's a huge disappointment. QB 25. And you barely outscored 2 guys that played half the season. Just an absolute worst case scenario for Bryce Young and the Panthers in my mind this season.
Absolutely. So let's get to our top 2 buys and top 2 sells for 2024. We'll start first of all with top 2 buys. We already, Sam Howell. It was just shit system. I mean, he showed flashes, and we'll definitely get another chance somewhere else. We kind of touched on that earlier, but the Commanders, hopefully he gets a fresh start next year. I mean, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 QB 10 top QB 1 weeks, and then a handful of QB 2 weeks to go 1, 2, 3 QB 2 weeks. So that's more than half the season. He was probably at quarterback 14 or better for almost the entire season, minus 4 games or 5 games.
Yeah. Basically, like I said earlier, the last 4 games of the year killed his overall finish. He was top 10 until the last 4 games of the year. He was clearly in the top 10, and he was actually sitting at 4 or 5 midway through the season in QB scoring. So the turnovers ended up knocking you down, and the last 4 games were Washington got a little iffy, and they started saying, "Oh, should we start with Jacoby Brissett?" and got a little crazy in there on him, kind of knocked down his numbers. But man, still finished top 15, and literally 85% of the season he was top 10.
Yeah, one shit game versus Buffalo where the Bills defense just absolutely bottled them up and just killed the entire team. But other than that, a 13-point game versus the Giants. Other than that, he's in pretty much. I mean, you would have started him every week in your Superflex roster for sure. So it was. I'm looking forward to him. If something happens where I think that possibly could happen, where the Commanders trade up and grab a quarterback from the Bears, or somebody stay put and grab a quarterback at 3. I'm still thinking that Sam Howell is going to be on a team. It'll be a quarterback competition, or they might just trade Sam Howell. I mean, I know how valuable backup quarterbacks are in the NFL now, but you really can't just pass on a guy like Sam Howell because he finished the season strong, not good, or the quarterback, the coaching and that team just kind of imploded. The entire team kind of imploded. Sam Howell is one of my top buys, and then Jake Browning is somebody else I'm going to throw in there just because of the fact that he came in, looked pretty good. He's definitely a dart throw for somebody, but the way he looked, I think that he could possibly he'll at least be a backup for a while in this league for sure. A good quality backup, but he might get a shot somewhere else. When he's still young, I think he's 26 or something like that, or 27. But he's still young.
Yeah, he's pretty young.
He showed flashes, and somebody will be like, "Hey, we lost a quarterback. Somebody gets hurt in preseason. Somebody gets hurt in regular season next year. He could be involved in a trade. That the Bengals would be probably interested in because they have their salary cap. Well, I know Browning is really cheap, but get rid of some money off your roster, get some draft picks for the future, and just and trade Drake Brown into a team that in desperation. Who knows what's going to happen with the Vikings or other teams that are quarterback needy. Anybody
Somebody
can
might
sniff
make a
around.
move. I mean, he is 27. I just looked up. He's 27, and like I said, he proved that he can play this year. I was highly impressed with him. He was a guy who was really good in college. He wasn't just a nobody. He was really good at Washington. So, but yeah, if you could go out and get him fairly cheap and hope that maybe he gets moved, or if Burrow has lingering injuries, he could be worth it. I like where your head's at there.
Who's your buys for 2024?
So for me, guys I want to keep an eye on, depending on what happens with the QB market and who goes where. The guys I'm keeping an eye on right now are Dak Prescott. Again, a great year, but you just always sometimes have that hate when he plays bad or the Cowboys lose in the playoffs. People get out on him at the end of the season. Does he stay in Dallas? Who knows kind of what's going there. But he's a guy I'm looking at for the right price. Russell Wilson, he's not going to be in Denver next year. Where he ends up, who knows? He had a nice little bounce back year this year before Denver got crazy and pulled him. He was much better than he was the first year in Denver. He could end up on a pretty surprising team and could be something. So he's the guy I'm keeping an eye on for value wise, depending where it is at. And then, like you said, Howell, I'm keeping an eye out on Howell. I want to buy Howell if I can. Hopefully he gets moved if the Commanders get crazy and decide, hey, we are going to take QB at number 2 in the draft, or move up to number 1 and try to get Caleb Williams. Hopefully they move Howell. So he's the guy I'm keeping an eye on. My big guy, and it's 2 years in a row for me. I went and got him a ton in the offseason last year, and that's Tua. I know you hate Tua. I think you're against it. I love McDaniels. I like the offense. I think the talent around him. Even if you don't think Tua's that great, for me, if the price is right, I like Tua. For all the trash everybody talked about him, he still led the league in passing yards this year. He still led the league in passing yards. He's still got Waddle. He's still got Tyreek Hill, at least for the next couple of years, you would assume. He finished as QB9 in the league, and at least in our league, he was QB9. And again, he led the league in passing. Still, people like you, John, are down on him. If I have people in my league that are down on Tua, I'm going out and trying to acquire Tua.
Well,
and we'll jump into there. What are your top sells? Because I know Tua, I think, is one of your top sells, correct?
Tua Tagovailoa and Geno Smith are guys who I am trying to get rid of. I think Geno Smith just having a job right now. He shows flashes, but I just don't think he's a long-term solution. I don't even think he's that good of a fantasy quarterback, to be honest with you. But Tua is just someone, man, when that Dolphins team is ahead, they embarrass people. They're super flashy. They do all, yeah, look at us, and everybody's jumping around. As soon as that team gets behind anybody, it seems like they just implode. Tua can't find anybody open. They start playing press coverage against players instead of sitting in the zone and letting Tua and Waddle and Tyreek Hill just get smoking either down the sidelines or in the middle of the field. They have good running backs who are athletic. Tua it just seems like he gets in his head where he can't do anything once things are just not unfolded on the table the way, unless the knife and the fork are here and the napkin's over here and the plate's set up with nothing touching each other. Like, he's great. But as soon as things start to go awry, he breaks down, man. I don't see it.
I do agree with you in that respect for real life football. But again, for me, I think he puts up good fantasy stats. I want him there. But I do agree with you. When the Dolphins get behind and things aren't going well, they do kind of melt down, and so does Tua in real life. But for me, the upside of fantasy, I like him. I like him there. Now, my top sells, I'm on the other side of you. If I've got Will Levis and somebody really likes him and loves the upside of him in Tennessee, I'm trying to sell Levis. Again, I'm not sure about his long-term makeup. I still feel like he's a guy that could have a lot of turnovers. He's got some skill. I'm just not totally sold on him. So somebody else is a believer. I'm moving him. And then I talked about earlier, Deshaun Watson. If I have him in leagues, I'm moving him. If I got someone who still believes that he can be a big bounce back, top end, high end guy, and I can get, a first round and some other pieces, I'm moving Deshaun Watson because I just don't think he can get back into the top 10, top 12 QBs for me. So those are my two sells this offseason if I can.
Well, thank you very much for everybody for watching the quarterback evaluation for this week. What last year's kind of review and next year's kind of look ahead with regular quarterbacks, rookies, the whole. We'll do rookie stuff later and probably starting next week or a week and a half from now. But this is just kind of a review of the quarterback situation and the whole season. So we'll do, like I said, tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll do running backs. Thursday, we'll do wide receivers. And Friday, we'll do tight ends. So thanks for watching the Commissioner Evaluation. You find me on X at John McGlynn 75. JT, tell everybody the good stuff where they can find you at.
Yep, find me on X at JT Orange. Also hosted the Stew with JT Brew on the Dynasty Pros Football YouTube channel.
Thank you. Great episode. Brian Clark, thanks for watching, man. I got your talented co-host with me, so the co-host with the mo-host, so I can't go wrong here. But thanks for tuning in, man. Later.
Hey, John, thanks for the episode, man. Looking forward to the next couple, man. Let's keep this thing rolling.
There we go. All right, I'll see everybody later. Thanks for watching.